What's up, Ocean? You got Matt here. Today I'm bringing you a guide on how to use Chien-Pao in competitive Pokemon. This thing is crazy. Definitely one of the, 5 best new Pokemon in competitive Pokemon released in Scarlet and Violet. So if you guys are excited for the video, then make sure to leave a like on the video and help us reach our like goal of 100 likes. Make sure to comment your thoughts on Chien-Pao and the Ruined Pokemon down in the comments below. And of course, subscribe to the channel to help us reach our sub goal of 3,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I know you can do it. We just need your support. Let's go ahead and jump on into it. Starting off with its stats, this Pokemon is basically just Baby Weavile, but like on steroids. It has 80 base HP, 120 in its attack stat, 80 defense, 90 special attack, 65 special defense, kind of iffy, but a ridiculous 135 base speed. That is absolutely insane. It's such a fast, hard-hitting Pokemon, and when you combine it with its move pool, its typing, its ability, it is one of the best offensive Pokemon ever created, bar none. Just such an amazing Pokemon overall. Moving on to its typing, though, it is an Ice and Dark type. So like I said, it is, well, Baby Weavile, but on steroids. This thing, the fact that it has, or honestly, a really bad defensive typing, it is kind of making up for the fact that it's an amazing offensive typing, and the stats kind of back that up. It has weaknesses to Rock, Bug, Steel, Fire, Fairy, and Fighting 4 times, and it has resistances to Ghost, Ice, and Dark, and an immunity to Psychic. The fact that this thing has an immunity is a really big deal, because if you're predicting a Psychic move, you can switch into your Chien-Pao and then pressure them really, really well. And I think that's one of the biggest advantages of this Pokemon, is that it can get in really kind of on certain Pokemon and then pressure extremely well. Its ability is absolutely crazy. One of the best abilities of all time, period. Sword of Ruin reduces the defense stats of every single Pokemon on the field except for your Chien-Pao by 25%. That's not a stat drop. It's not a stat modifier like you get a +1 boost in attack if you go for something like a Howl or whatever, or you get a +2 boost in defense if you go for Iron Defense. This is different. This takes all those stat drops, all those stat increases, all the modifications, and then reduces the stat total by 25%. That is absolutely key because you can get a lot more drops than just a normal -1 in defense. Huge deal. The fact that this Pokemon has this ability makes it even more of a hard hitter than its attack stats, its typing, and its coverage all put into one. This ability is what makes this Pokemon really good. Onto its move pool, it has a really diverse move pool, but you really only need to run like 3 moves every single time you're going to use it, and then maybe 1 flex spot. Starting off with its ice moves, it has access to Ice Spinner, the new ice type attack. It is 80 base power, 100% accurate, destroys terrain, really powerful. However, you also have access to Icicle Crash, which is a bit more powerful at 85 base power. However, the downside is that it's 10% less accurate, so it has a 90% chance to hit, 10% chance to miss. It does have the chance to flinch though, which is a good thing because you're fast, but do you really want to take the chance to miss your move rather than just being consistent with the Ice Spinner? That depends. It has priority in Ice Shard, which is a big advantage as well. Doesn't see as much play in my opinion compared to something like Icicle Crash and Ice Spinner because you want to be using your Ice Shard for other things, but still it is very powerful. Then we have Crunch, Throat Chop, and Sucker Punch. These are the dark type attacks, the main dark type attacks for Chien-Pao. The fact that Crunch is just a consistent way to do big damage, potentially to get a defense drop, further defense drop, is a big deal. Throat Chop can be useful in the right situation against Pokemon going for sound moves, something like a Toxtricity, I guess. And then Sucker Punch is extremely common on this, and one of the reasons why you don't really run Ice Shard on a Pokemon like Chien-Pao. In general, the coverage it has for its stabs are really good, but the other coverage it has, the other moves it has for support are also very strong. Sacred Sword is an amazing move to have for this Pokemon, definitely one of the best additions to it, really like that a lot. It also has access to Psychic Fangs, which can break through opposing fighting type Pokemon really effectively. And then I have Aerial Ace here as well, mostly if like Buzzwole comes back in the metagame because Buzzwole is a very good defensive check, but I guess it also covers Slitherwing and Heracross as well. Then for some status moves that are going to be really common, I think Taunt and Swords Dance are absolutely going to be seeing a lot of play, and Recover a little bit, enough to the point where I think maybe on a bulkier set that's expecting some swaps, you can definitely run Recover with like Substitute or something, and then just run your stabs and be good to go. It's definitely a possibility. Now let's talk about some Pokemon that you can pair with Chien-Pao as some teammates. Starting off with the first one, we're going to be covering for doubles, Dragonite. I think Dragonite is absolutely crazy. It's got a lot of buffs in this generation, indirect buffs, and that's a really good, makes it one of the best pseudo-legendary Pokemon in the game. The fact that it can use the Terastalizing mechanic to turn into a normal type to have boosted extreme speeds is extremely important. unintended. I really like this combination because it's an amazing physical attacker that gets and takes advantage really well of the defense drop that Chien-Pao provides. It also has multi-scale, so it's not really in danger of being OHKO'd in one hit unless it's from a really powerful ice type attack that you would be coming in your way. But even then, most of the time you're probably going to be running inner focus on those Dragonites in doubles. Either way, I think Dragonite's a fantastic partner to have for this Pokemon, especially in doubles. As for singles, I think Slowking is an amazing pivot. The fact that it resists fighting, fire, and steel is amazing. I also think that Assault Vest is a really good item to have on it to pair with a Chien-Pao, because Chien-Pao's special defense stat is kind of pitiful. So having access to a really good special sponge is obviously an amazing advantage. Then I think that Magnezone makes a lot of sense. This Pokemon's great on Drag Mag teams, but having access to Magnezone in general to just punish steel types overall is a really good thing. Obviously, Pokemon like Corviknight are taking neutral damage, but Corviknight is being mostly run as a physical defensive Pokemon, so having Magnezone to be trapping it and then going for a nice Thunderbolt to get the KO on it is a big advantage, so that Chien-Pao can be a lot more freed up in the metagame. Really big deal there. Then I have Dragapult here. They have an amazing speed combination here. Dragapult's like, what, 142, 143, something like that. And this Pokemon's at 135. Really fast Pokemon. But these Pokemon also both force in defensive Pokemon and Dark types, which is a good thing because they're able to break for each other really effectively. It's able to basically force this, a Dragapult I'm saying, is basically able to force in Pokemon that are going to be maybe defensive or maybe specially defensive. You don't know because Dragapult can do both things. If the Pokemon that comes in is a specially defensive Pokemon and you're going for a Dragon Dance, well, you're going to break through that special Pokemon. If the Pokemon coming in is a physically defensive Pokemon, even if you go for a Dragon Dance, you're able to chip it down enough for Chien-Pao, which is a big deal. Other than that, I think Annihilate is a fantastic partner as well because it's another great ghost type. It's got decent speed at base 90 overall, but this one really does an effective job at destroying steel type Pokemon. And that's huge for Chien-Pao, we mentioned before, with the Magnezone. We then have Glimmora, which is an amazing hazard stacker. The fact that this Pokemon is around is honestly an amazing thing because it's the best hazard setter in the game right now, arguably. And you're able to also pressure your opponent's team really effectively because of those hazards, but also because of your amazing offensive stat. You have like 130 in your special attack. That's crazy. The fact you have that high special attack plus the power behind your hazards with a Chien-Pao in the back is really, really good. Then we have Slitherwing. I think Slitherwing is really underrated in this metagame. I posted a guide on it a few days ago, but this Pokemon really destroys opposing Dark types, and there's a lot of really good Dark types in the format. Even running a Choice Scarf set to be able to just U-turn around on basically everything, click close combat a bunch of times, is very powerful. The only issue I have with it is its speed here is kind of meh paired with Chien-Pao, but 81 base speed overall is still fine. And then finally, I have Roaring Moon, mostly for doubles here, because I think that Double Dark is really good in the doubles metagame, and the fact that you're able to get the boost from the boost energy, plus the drop for your opponents at least, and you kind of, for the Chien-Pao's Sword of Ruin is a big advantage, and you can basically just destroy pretty much everything. And at that point in time, your opponent has to decide, am I going to focus more on the Chien-Pao, or am I going to focus more on the Roaring Moon? Which is it? It's a tough call to make. On to some Terra types here. I think the best Terra types are going to be starting off with Fighting. I think Fighting is a fantastic Terra type. You get a boosted Sacred Sword, which is really nice, and helps you break through a lot of the Dark types so much easier, which is a big deal. I think that Dark is arguably better than Fighting, but in my opinion, I think Fighting has a slight edge. In doubles, is definitely Dark though. Doubles 100% go with Dark, but I think that the double stab that you're getting on the Dark type attacks is insane on a lot of Pokemon, but really crazy on a Pokemon like Chien-Pao. It's already getting the drop in your opponent's defense stat, but also has Sucker Punch for priority as an option as well. Then we have Ghost, mostly because it's there to offer a fighting immunity. It can be predicted though, a lot of people are running the Ghost type Terastalizing because you want to be able to be immune to the fighting type attacks that are in the metagame right now. I do feel like there's certain options that are better, but Ghost is still really solid. And then there's Ice. I think that Ice has enough merit to be on this list, but it is definitely nowhere near as good as the other three options. But keep it in mind, I think Ice can be really solid depending on how the metagame shapes up, and if Ice type attacks are going to be really that powerful. Now let's talk about some of the best items to have on a Chien-Pao. I think that the heavy duty boots is one of, if not the best item available, because there are so many hazards in today's metagame. You don't want to be taking 25% from rocks on entry. You don't want to be taking the spikes on entry, the toxic spikes, all these things. You want to come in multiple times, so boots are absolutely critical on Chien-Pao. But if you want a really good breaking option, a choice band set is fantastic. Having an ability to just power through basically any check to this Pokemon in the format is key. I really like it a lot. And in the same vein, we have Choice Scarf. If you're really worried about maybe opposing Chien-Paos or opposing really fast Pokemon, you can run a Choice Scarf yourself and then pressure them really effectively because you already have basically a pseudo buff in your ability of Sword of Ruin. Then we have the Life Orb. If you want the ability to switch up your moves, I like this one a lot. This pairs really well with a Swords Dance set and can be effective in basically any situation. And then finally, this is more so for doubles, a Focus Sash variant is really good to have the ability to take one hit and then fire off really big damage against your opponents. I think it's one of the best items to have, and probably the best one to have for doubles specifically. Let's talk about some specific movesets now for this Pokemon. Starting off with a Choice Band set, this Pokemon has access to some really awesome moves. So we're going to be running here the Ice Spinner, the Sucker Punch, Sacred Sword, and Crunch. The Crunch is a flex spot, obviously, but I do think Crunch makes a lot of sense to be consistent dark type attacks instead of Sucker Punch, which is not as consistent. Obviously, Sword of Ruin makes a lot of sense, but I think on this Pokemon here, you want to go with Terra Dark on a Pokemon like this. As for the Life Orb side, I think the Life Orb makes a lot more sense to be running a Terra Ghost type. The reason for that is because you're going to be taking chips throughout the game from Life Orb. You want to make sure that you can take the incoming fighting type attack that'll just try and target you. Having access to Ice Spinner is a really big deal with Sucker Punch as well for priority. Sacred Sword for big damage against opposing dark type Pokemon, but then Swords Dance with the Life Orb is absolutely key. As for our next moveset, we have the Heavy Duty Boot set here. Again, we're running the same 4 moves as the first set overall. Most of the time, we're going to be running the first 3 moves being Ice Spinner, Sucker Punch, and Sacred Sword. I think that Crunch makes a lot of sense on a Pokemon like this, but you can definitely replace it with Swords Dance as well. Then we have a Focus Sash set for doubles. This is running the Ice Spinner, the Sucker Punch, the Sacred Sword, and the Protect. I think overall having access to this move pool here is really all you're going to need. Maybe replace Sacred Sword with Taunt as well. That's another option, but I do think that in general, this is a fantastic move set to have for doubles. On to some predictions for this Pokemon. Where do I think this Pokemon will end up in each of the respective competitive metagames? For Smogon, for VGC, kind of, since it's not really allowed yet, and then for Draft League. Starting off with Smogon, so we always begin. I think this Pokemon is going to end up being in the TO USE here. Yeah, I was surprised, honestly. I thought I was going to have this Pokemon in Ubers. I originally, when I first saw it, I thought it was going to be Ubers, but that's when things changed. And the reason for that is because I thought this Pokemon was going to be banned already, but it hasn't been. There's been, what, 6 bans before this Pokemon, which is crazy to think about. It's still here, and that tells me that there's enough answers to it right now. And that's going to be honestly getting worse for it, because when new Pokemon come in through DLCs and through Pokemon Home, all these things, there's going to be more answers to this Pokemon in the format. And that's a really big deal. So it might fall off overall. There's going to be fewer good matchups for it, and the meta might just shift around it, away from it completely, which I think is a very likely possibility. In singles, it's still an amazing Pokemon. I just think that it's not going to be good enough to be bumped to the Ubers tier. As for VGC, obviously, this Pokemon is not currently legal in VGC. I have to state that. The Paradox Pokemon and the Ruin Pokemon are not legal, which makes no sense to me at all. They're some of the coolest Pokemon introduced, and you're just not going to allow them in your first series? Crazy. But whatever. When it is allowed, I think this Pokemon is going to be insanely good. Why? The fact that you can pair this Pokemon on a hyper-offensive team is ridiculous. You putting this Pokemon in, you get a drop on everything around. You bring in a Dragonite. You bring in a Roaring Moon. You bring in a ton of other great physical threats. Iron Hands even, I don't care. And you're able to pressure them, your opponent's team extremely well. I think that overall, this Pokemon is going to provide a lot more support than breaking potential, but it still is going to break extremely well, at least in VGC. And then for Draft League, this is my specialty. On a 17 to 18 point scale, we're looking at this Pokemon being a 18-point Pokemon. This is going to be one of the best Pokemon out there. This thing is super fast, it's super hard, has the Sword of Ruin, can be kind of molded around whatever you need, but there is counter teaming involved with Draft League. And I think that's where there's going to be a bit of an issue, since this Pokemon is very, very linear. There's like 1 or 2 few sets that you can run that are kind of like in the realm of being different. They're all very straightforward. They're all kind of the same set. So be aware of that. Maybe it's the item you change, but that's really going to be it, to be honest. Overall, I think that this Pokemon's going to be better probably in Draft League than in any other format, but it's going to be really good in every single format overall. And that's all I've got for you guys today on Chien-Pao, the Sword of Ruin Pokemon. This Pokemon is absolutely crazy, and I hope you learned more about it today. If you guys enjoyed the video, then make sure to leave a like on the video and help us reach our like goal of 100 likes. Be sure to comment your thoughts on Chien-Pao down in the comments below, as well as which Pokemon in the Ruin Pokemon you want to see me cover next. I posted a poll on the channel yesterday, and it turns out that Chien-Pao won that poll, but Chi-Yu was pretty close in second place, so we'll see if Chi-Yu is going to be covered next. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel as well and help us reach our sub goal of 3,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We can't do without your support, and I'm really hoping we get there. I also want to give a big thank you to our YouTube channel members. Their support is greatly appreciated. Our level 1s are going to be Liv, Eric, Zeke, and Texas Man. Our level 2 is Tone, and our level 3 is Sully. They all went the extra mile by supporting the channel financially, and I really do appreciate it. I also want to thank everyone for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed the content, and I will see you guys all tomorrow.